My name is Donna Daniel Davis. Um, I did not live in the Merrick-Moore community. I was bused to the Merrick-Moore community prior to integration. I lived on 54 Highway. The address at that time was Route 4, Box 105, Durham, North Carolina. And at that time, there was no development off of Route 4. It was where the old Governor's Inn used to be, near Davis Drive. It's now Davis Drive, that runs by the area. My home is no longer there. The land is built up into trees once again. And so there is no, unless I tell the story, there is no one will ever know that we lived in that area. But we were bused to Merrick-Moore because that was the Black school that we were required to attend. We had our own little triangle of family. My great grandparents, Reverend James Mason and Arkadelphia Mason, and they built their own home. They built these houses. Then my grandfather, who was his son, lived directly across from him, and that was Otis and Iola Mason, well known in the community and in the school system, especially my grandmother, Iola Mason. She was a public speaker and a woman ahead of her time, very active in the school because she wanted to see how we were being treated as Black students. And then right behind those two houses was my parents' home. My mom was Gladys Daniel, and my father's name was Johnny Martin Daniel. And we had, I'm the second oldest of 9 children. I had 3 sisters and 6 brothers. My sister was a school bus driver. And at that time, as soon as you got your license, and sometimes even before you got your driver's license, you could, if you applied to be a bus driver and you completed the training, then you could drive a busload of kids to school. So she was our bus driver. She went on her route, and we rode to Pearsontown Elementary School off of Barbie Road. From there, we would get on a bus and then go take that bus to Merrick-Moore. So the bus didn't go directly from our house to Merrick-Moore. It went from Pearsontown Elementary School, or what we call, and then because Pearsontown and Highland Junior High School were combined, and the buses would come there, you get off that bus and go get on the bus that was going to the high school, Merrick-Moore. In my senior year of my grandparents passed, and we inherited their home, which was over in Morrisville, North Carolina. Wasn't far, but it seemed far to me as a child. So my father bought a car for me, and I was able to drive the car directly to Merrick-Moore instead of going to Pearsontown, changing buses, and then going to taking that bus over to Merrick-Moore. We couldn't keep the car. We had to pass the car down as you got older to the next sibling so that they could go to school with the same car. The car was only for education. That was it. I love my school, and we felt the camaraderie there because it was an all-Black school. You couldn't wait for the next group coming in from Pearsontown or those students from Highland Junior High School to graduate from middle school. It was our middle school. So we were anxious to see them coming from middle school to Merrick-Moore. I was also excited because we knew at some point we would be joining. I knew I would be joining my siblings, my uncles, my aunts. All of them went to Merrick. My mother even went there, but it was a process. So during that time, like I said, you would get to the elementary school, the buses would park beside each other. You get off that bus and you went to the number of the bus that was going to take you to Merrick-Moore High School. That was such an exciting time for me because everyone was waiting to go to high school, and you were considered, pretty much kind of grown or adult, a young adult then. So you could mingle with the high school students. Um, you quickly, once you got to Merrick-Moore, you immediately meshed with the Merrick-Moore community, which was the students who live right around Mount Zor Baptist Church. Many of those students that lived in that community walked to school. And so we would get to see them walk to school, even though we rode the bus. And we all just mingled together once they got there. And we were friends with the students who lived in the Merrick-Moore community, as well as those that were bused from way across town. Because from Barbie Road going all the way out to Cheek Road, that was a ride. That's a ride. that was an experience, but we enjoyed it because we were family on the bus. Everyone was family. You knew who was riding the bus, you knew who was getting off the bus, and we were always the last ones to go home because my sister, like I said, she had to drop us off, and she dropped the kids off on their route, and then we were always the first ones to get on the bus and the last ones to get off the bus to go, going home. You got involved. I was a majorette at Merrick-Moore. We had a football team. Merrick-Moore played Hillside High School, and we were rivals at that time. It was almost, we couldn't wait for that game to occur. Whenever we played Hillside, it was always going to be some fight. You knew there was going to be a fight somewhere because, but it's not like we were looking for it. It's just that we were told to be on the lookout for it, in case we lost the game or they lost the game. Because, Hillside was a little hothead, and our majorettes against their majorettes, and everyone was always trying to outdo each other, just like you do in college. So being at Merrick-Moore is almost like being in college, playing against your rival. One time, Merrick-Moore and Hillside even started, one time even having their own, it was called the Hillside Merrick-Moore Reunion, because it was special. It was a special time. This was years after integration that we held that Hillside Merrick-Moore reunion. The other thing, we knew we were juniors. The last class to leave Merrick-Moore High School were the junior students at that school. We did not get, because we knew we would not get to have a senior prom together, we held the first, or the only, it was called the Black Prom. We held a prom even though we were junior students in 1969, and it was fabulous. Because usually you didn't go to the prom unless you were a senior, and we were always you look forward to your senior year of high school because you knew that was the year you were graduating, that was the year you get to go to the prom. But since we knew we would not have a senior prom for Merrick-Moore, we held a Black prom. It was called the Black Junior Prom. And it was great. It was great. That year, I think everybody went to like 3 different proms that year for the first time ever, unless you were invited somewhere else. So I went to the Black Prom at Merrick-Moore. I went to, I was invited to another prom. I don't know where I was, but there was 3 or 4 that I went to that year. And then when you got to be a senior at your, whatever school you were, you first integrated into, like I was at Southern High School, it was different. You could tell it was different. It was going to be different because, everybody's looking at each other. We were told stories about how white kids might treat us. However, when I got to Southern, I didn't really see a lot of that. And I think they were told how they were to treat us because it would be our first year ever of integration. So they were pretty friendly towards me, and we did everything we could to be friends with them. We didn't go overboard. We were just ourselves. And the school that I went to pretty much accepted us. There were some first times doing different things, of course, but we leaned on each other. Those who were from Merrick-Moore that also went to Southern High School, where I went, we looked for each other throughout the day because that was our strength. Drawing from, you saw someone else who went to Merrick-Moore in the year before, or was there or was coming there. If you saw anyone that was from Merrick-Moore the year in 1970, that's what the year it was, 1970. If you saw someone who was at Merrick-Moore, at your school, that came from Merrick-Moore in 1969, you cherish that bond, and you leaned on each other just to get through that senior year at the integrated school. I'll tell you one thing. When I went to Southern High School, there was another girl, and her last name was Morgan. I'm trying to remember her first name, but we became very good friends because we were at Merrick-Moore together. We were, at that time, women could not wear, girls couldn't wear pants to school. You couldn't wear any slacks, nothing. Had to be a dress. But it was so cold that winter, very cold. We got together and we talked about wearing pants. And I said, oh, her name was Marilyn. I said, Marilyn, it is too cold to be wearing a dress to school. I tell you what, if you wear pants, I'll wear pants. And we'll just, if someone say anything, then, at least we'll be in it together. So, but we had to get permission from our parents to wear pants that day. And sure enough, we were the only ones in school wearing slacks. And we were the first ones to start that trend at our at Southern High School. First girls to wear pants in the school, no slacks. So again, even through the years, we are a close-knit school. We still have reunions every year, and the bond is still tight. We remember from whence we've come. Relationships played a big part back then too, because you could see the couples, kind of sneaking around during lunchtime, and they wouldn't eat lunch. They'd go outside because you could go outdoors at the time and have your, and just, you either ate or I ate outside, or you could just, stay in the cafeteria. But when you're in high school, you're smitten by the love bug. So most people didn't eat. They would find that significant other and go outside and sit under a tree or something with that person instead of eating lunch. So, we had our significant people. And, you could just see the couples kind of wandering off. But they come back now. They would come back. It's interesting because I wound up marrying years later my track coach's son, the coach at Merrick-Moore. It was about 15 years later. I didn't even know him, but I wound up marrying his son. Everybody had relatives. Most people had a sister or brother, somebody already there at the school that kind of guided you into your role at Merrick-Moore. So I had a sister, an aunt, an uncle, and some cousins that were already there when I got there because they were older than me. And everyone they always talked about when you get here. And they were very protective of me when I got there. And everybody kind of you always looked out for your family. And if you didn't have family, you looked out for your best friends and the group that you were with. So everyone was always looking out for each other. We didn't use the word bullying, but there was bullying occurring with some people who were very, kind of meek and mild, couldn't stand up for themselves. And that even occurred with me at one point. I didn't know what was going on, but there was a group of girls that my sister had a problem with. And because they had a problem with her, they were taking it out on me because I was related to her. And we eventually resolved that, though. because teachers would not allow you to fight. But there was lots of fights, and whenever there was a fight, that was exciting. So instead of people running away from the fight, we as Black people would run to the fight. And you say, fight, 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 fight. And everybody just come running, where? And you're just standing around looking to see who's in the middle of the circle fighting. And and one day I heard them calling, saying, fight, fight. And I'm running towards the fight. So when I get there, it's my sister. It's my sister in the middle of my sister's in the middle of all these people. And I'm saying, and she and the other girl are saying, hit me. No, you hit me. No, you hit me. And they were just daring each other to throw the first punch. And I said, oh gosh, I'll hit you. And so I jumped off the banister, off the stairway, and went right into the middle of the ring, into the area where they were getting ready to fight, and threw the first punch. Even if I wasn't even involved, I just saw my sister. So those are the kind of things that we saw, and they were exciting because, like I said, everybody ran to a fight. You didn't run away from a fight. We also had great teachers back then too. The teachers would look out for us. They were allowed to put us on track, make sure we stayed on track as far as our education. I'll never forget a teacher named Miss Merritt, Merritt, Miss Merritt. I'll just say that. Fabulous guidance counselor at Merrick-Moore. You could tell her, she would always ask you what your goals and objectives were. And if you didn't have any, she would help you set some realistic goals, measurable goals, and objectives. And I remember telling her that I wanted to be a nurse. Because my mom was a nurse. And I said, she said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a nurse like my mom. So I said, I'm going to go to a 2-year school, which would have been Lincoln Hospital School of Nursing. And she says, no, you're not. She cut me off just like that. She said, no, you're not. I said, I'm not? What do you mean I'm not? I'm not going. She said, you're not going to a 2-year school. And I said, well, so what am I going to do? She said, you're going to a 4-year university, or college back then. She said, you're going to a 4-year university, and you're going to become a registered nurse, and you're going to get your degree. I didn't know anything about a registered nurse because my mother was a nurse, but she was a licensed practical nurse. She was an LPN, and she did go to she went to the Watts School of Nursing. And she was a graduate of Merrick-Moore, but it was called Mill Grove then. It wasn't called Merrick-Moore. It was called Mill Grove at that time. And so I said, well, where am I supposed to go to get this 4-year degree? And she said, I don't care. She said, you're just not going to go to a 2-year school. You're going to get a 4-year degree. That's okay. So my best friend and I talked about it. We decided that we would apply at different places, and we both got the same, really the same thing, Winston-Salem State University. That's where we both went. We went to the nursing school at Winston-Salem State. And we both graduated from there. And then we both wound up marrying into the same family. So my best friend became my aunt by marriage. We were also in an organization that Ms. Merritt started called Project Opportunity. Project Opportunity was for Black students who showed signs of academic excellence. They had potential. She could see it in them. We couldn't see it, but she could see it. And she started this program called Project Opportunity. And I don't know that it was just for underprivileged Black students. But then as Black kids, we didn't know what we were missing because, you never miss what you never had. So we were, based on our grades, she could see that we had academic great potential, and she pulled it out of us. My best friend was also in Project Opportunity, and I was. And she looked around the Durham community. This is Miss Merritt, would look around the Durham community at cultural events. She would arrange for us to get into etiquette classes for girls. She'd arrange for us to go to Duke University, um, learn how to be cultured women before we went off to school, to college. She also held like our first dance with boys, formal dancing. So we would learn how to accept an invitation to the dance floor from a young man, from a gentleman. So she taught us what gentlemen were and what young ladies were supposed to be and how we were supposed to act. And I carried that on into my life. Her teaching, her training, her expectations became my expectations. And I carried that on into the life of my children as well. How you're to be treated, what to look for in men. So we had, she was the greatest guidance counselor. And that's what we needed as young Black kids trying to grow up in this world, because it was a difficult world, but we were complacent and we did not know the dangers that were lurking out there, because at that time our parents kept us close to them. You didn't venture off and go spend the night with this person, spend the night with them. You didn't do that because our parents knew the danger of race. In other words, they knew how could possibly be treated because of how they were treated. And so they were very protective. Our families were protective, and the community around your home was just that. It was a family. And they say, the old Ghanaian proverb is like, it takes a village to raise a child. That's what we as Black children at Merrick-Moore experienced. The family helping raise us and taking care of us. To this day, like I said, I live in Maryland now, and I've been here for many years. I came here through the military. After I graduated from college, I joined the military, and I was an Air Force nurse. So even when I go back home to Durham, if I run across someone from Merrick-Moore, I'm going to be smiling just like this. Because it means so much to me to have been a part of that group of people. My group, they're in their 70s now. I'm 70. I'll be 71 this year. And so that's another reason I smile, because that class is 70 years old. We're in our 70s. And it takes me back in thought as to all the years ago that we had fun with each other, and just kids with not a lot of worries. We didn't have the bills and keeping up a house or children, all that. So we were just free-spirited children back then, just trying to make a life for ourselves and learning our way in this world. So now we have done that, and we are now at our retirement age, and we're just trying to instill those values and leave a legacy, in other words. The reunions are fabulous because, first of all, you're looking at each other to see if you recognize who you are. Everyone's gained weight, and, you look a little different in the face. You say, I think aren't you? Don't I remember? Oh, yeah, I remember your eyes. I remember your smile. I remember you had a mole on your face or something like that. Because, everyone has, through the years, people have gained weight or they've lost a lot of weight. You first got to take a moment and say, didn't you go to Merrick-Moore? And kind of try to remember who that person is. It takes a while to do that after all these years. Some people have been sick, and it shows in their face. But then you have a few that, mostly the guys, mostly the men still look the same. women, many of us have had babies and we look different in the face, look different in the body structure and everything. So you kind of take a moment to see who in the world am I talking to, first of all. And once you connect it, that's when you go back in time and you start talking about the things that you did, the people that were in your class. Where is so-and-so? How long has it been since you've seen them? Oh, by the way, they passed last year. That's the sad part of a reunion, especially when you've been having a reunion every year and the numbers are starting to get smaller and smaller and the attendance is smaller and smaller. And usually when we have a reunion, some of them will bring, maybe a young adult child or a teenager or even a grandchild just so they can see what the camaraderie is like in being among Blacks, the way it used to be, because that is the way it used to be. As soon as you saw someone, you hugged them, you cherished them, and you started thinking about going back in time as to how did this person impact my life. And sometimes you hear stories about you don't even know you meant something to somebody, or you did anything that mentored them, or you were someone that they patterned their life after, just watching you and maybe never saying anything. Now we're of the age now where we are the advisors, never too old to take advice, but we are the advisors now. And we have come a long way. We've endured a lot in our lifetime, suffered a lot. And I think that we are definitely the ones who are ready to lead the world into the next whatever. But it's been a life of pleasure to me, a life of sadness, suffering. Come a long way since segregation, a long way. I remember, and I want to digress a minute here. I can remember, because I spoke about riding the buses. We all had to ride a bus. Many of us did not. There was hardly anybody that walked to school, but most of us had to ride a bus to get to school. And in riding the buses, generally we had to ride past a group of white kids who were standing waiting for their bus. But they were trained, that's why I'm gonna say they were trained to respond the way they did. Because I remember we were standing outside, a group of us talking, waiting for the bus to come. And they threw up their middle finger at us and said, look at the naggers, And some of them would throw like eggs at the bus. We didn't have new buses. We got the old buses from the white schools. They got new books. We got the old used books from the white schools. So and the books that we had in our classes only had white faces in them. There was nothing in the books that we learned from that depicted Blacks did anything. And I remember I probably was a junior, probably a junior then, when I when I went to Southern High School. I was a senior then. And I remember going through a book and it just finally hit me. This is segregation. And I'm flipping through a book one day and I said, where are we? Where are we in the book? Didn't we do anything? Did Blacks do anything? But that was left intentionally out of the history books. And so a lot of what we endured is what in today's time, we are now learning about Blacks more intensely. Henry Louis Gates has the segment that comes on TV, Finding Our Roots. And that is a phenomenal segment or documentary, whatever you want to call it, because he has really helped us go back in time and find ourselves. And I've done DNA and ancestry myself, and I've been able to go back and this is fascinating. Having done DNA and ancestry, I now look back in my high school years and say, that was my cousin I went to school with. that was my aunt that I went to school with, and I didn't even know it, you know? So it's been a fascinating journey, because my sister and I call each other and say, did you know that John was your cousin? Did you know that Lydia was our cousin? We didn't even know it. We didn't even talk to them. We made, we talked to them, but we didn't know they were our family, because they were like, at that time you were like, you lived quite a distance from each other, especially those who live like in the country areas or the rural areas. So you didn't get to see each other that much unless you went to school, that probably was the only time you did see these people. But then for them to say, DNA is saying, that was your cousin. That has been fascinating to me. So it has been a journey. It has been a journey. And Merrick-Moore, I have to say, was I'm just so thankful that I got an opportunity to go there, because that was the first time in my life that, outside of my family, that I really saw the Black connection on a more advanced level. And many of us have gone on to make great impacts in the world and in society. It's been great. Who do I see when I go back? I always call my best friends family, because they kept me straight. So I look for them. I look for my aunts who went there. Not a lot of people are still living, and that's the part that I don't like to think about, because that makes me sad. So almost every day or every week I hear something about someone passing that was in our class, or the classes ahead of us. Teachers are pretty much all gone. Principals almost all gone. The Holloway Funeral Home, very dear to us, because Kenneth Holloway and the Holloways were a very prominent part of the Merrick-Moore community. We're very, very close. The Holloways, Kenneth Holloway and I are very, very close. We all came through together. He was in my class, and he played sports. My major, and he's playing sports. So we are very close. One thing I don't like to do is go by that funeral home and look on the board and see someone that I knew or that I went to school with. So one thing I try to avoid even going past the Holloway Funeral Home, because I know it represents him, first of all, because that's his family establishment. But at the same time, and I can only imagine how he feels too, because so many people that he went to Merrick-Moore with are gone. And they went through that funeral home. His family, some of his family, his friends and loved ones, his father. So I used to tell him, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you do it. Because he was a big part of the Merrick-Moore community. The Holloways, you really can't talk about Merrick-Moore without talking about the Holloways. They were also members of the Mount Zoa Baptist Church. Some of the people were like the Bostics that lived over there. Thompsons, Yuba Thompson. Some of those people that live right on that street. Very close friends. They were very close. So I hate to hear that when someone has gone on to glory, but we all gonna go one day. It's life. It was sad, and I do remember the day that it was announced to us, and we had an assembly. We had an assembly that day called by the principal. He explained to us what was going to happen. They tried to prepare us as much as they could mentally for this transition and this major transition in our life. They held PTA meetings to discuss it with our parents, so that our parents could work with us a little bit at home about how we're to act, what we might see, in a white school. Um, it was a sad day. Many of us cried because we knew that meant we would be leaving each other. And because it was a sad day, when they announced it, the one thing that we knew we needed to do was have a closing. And we decided to have, I don't even know who spearheaded that idea, but it was decided that we would have the black prom. And it was the final prom held at Merrick-Moore High School in 1969. When I went to the white school, Southern Maryland, so I don't say Southern Maryland, I live in Maryland, Southern High School in North Carolina. One of the things I began to notice that the white schools tried to do, and that was try to get token blacks to be in things. And I couldn't understand why I was always like the token black to be asked, but I was asked to be in the Daughters of the American Revolution. Yeah, of course, you had to be nominated to be in the DAR, or Daughters of American Revolution. And I was like, what is the Daughters of the American Revolution? But I was the only one asked when I got to the white school to be in it. And I think that was part of their initiation, try to include blacks in things. And so, but I was not accepted. I read about it years later, and I said, because I really didn't know what it was, what that was. But later on, I started reading about it, and I said, oh, so this is what this is about. These are about the women who helped the Confederate soldiers, during that time, providing aid and care to them as they were fighting for slavery. And I said, no, why would I want to be a part of that? No, I'm not going to be a part of that. So, but I didn't know that. So I'm so glad. And I guess after they asked me, they probably figured I wouldn't fit. I'm not a good fit for this particular thing, DAR. One other thing, which was a very important thing, when we left, we were told that, while you're in a black school, same thing with black colleges, HBCUs, you are drawn to each other. There's a lot of playtime, a lot of friendliness, overly friendliness. You can say things that you can say things to each other as blacks that whites can't say to you, or you can't say to whites. So we were told, be careful with what we're saying, how we say it. And I'm sure they were told the same thing. You could see them really trying hard to it was almost like overly friendly to us. Most of us just went to school, came back, but you could see the whites really, it was like an overly kindness, like they really didn't know what to say to us because they hadn't been among us as students, as black students. I knew then, and we were told that we would really have to apply ourselves to compete against the whites. But one thing I learned when I went there, that I was just as smart or smarter. I didn't have to overly extend myself because many of them were from a privileged home and things were given to them. We worked and we studied because our teachers at Merrick-Moore meant business. There wasn't a lot of playtime when it came to education because they knew what we would be up against one day. And so I was ready. The teachers at Merrick-Moore had done their job and they made me ready for integration. So I didn't feel like I had to really overextend myself because I knew what I knew and I knew just as much or more than they did. In the beginning of the year, is when everyone's feeling each other out mentally, physically, they're just trying to see what they can do and get away with. But we actually did pretty well. I developed a lot of friends while I was there, both Black and whites. I had white teachers that I saw had my best interests at heart as well. And they really, I don't know, I think I was just focused. Um, I didn't have the other students. Most of the students that I went with, they went off to a lot of students went to other schools. So you didn't, so in walking in the hallways, if you saw a Black, you say, hi, hi, you're looking around the corner like, oh, there's one, oh, there's one, there's so-and-so. So, it was like like O's among X's. You could spot them. You could spot the O's and the X's were just walking past you. So you picked them out. And those are the ones, and you kept that relationship with almost all of them. Everyone knew each other. And again, at the beginning of the year, that's the way we were. By the end of the year, you would see you'd see us, with a group of white kids maybe, because you've established that relationship. They're seeking us out, we're seeking them out. So and I I particularly remember one white guy who he was always coming to me because I was outstanding in English. I was a straight A student in English. And he couldn't quite get it. So he was always coming trying to hang around me when I was in my English class. He wanted to sit next to me in my English class so he could get it. And it dawned on me, I said, smart? I'm smart too. Smart, smart. So that's the way it was. You just you realize some of the stories you heard really weren't even true. That they were better than you. They weren't better than you. They were just more privileged than you. If you did your work, if you studied hard, it's like you can be and do anything you want to be, especially in this day and time. And so we were prepared back then for what we are enduring today. My education, years I've been hearing about, Rosa Parks, but you never saw them in books or anything. And when after graduating from college and going to moving to Maryland, we had an event at the Kennedy Center. And one of my good friends was an event planner, and she planned the event at the Kennedy Center. And I was asked to be a hostess. I got to meet and host Rosa Parks. And I have a picture with her to this day. It was fascinating. I said, this is the woman that everyone talked about, but I never got to see her. I said, this is the face of the book, the face of the books. At the time I met her, she had a bodyguard because they were trying to preserve her. She was a small thing, a little thing, and up in age, but very friendly. And so everyone, if you ever got a chance to couldn't really get close to her. I did because I was her hostess. I was showing her, I was the one that was responsible for escorting her. And so, but she would sign autographs, many, and her bodyguard, escorted her everywhere. And she carried a gun with her, Black bodyguard, female bodyguard, carried a gun. And she was the one who would tell people, she's not signing any more autographs. That's enough. Even though Miss Parks would want to continue, she, as the bodyguard, was responsible for preserving her energy. And she had to say no more. And I remember Miss Parks saying to a lady, a young man wanted her autograph. And she said, well, can't I just sign one more? She says, no, Miss Parks, no more. She said, well, can't I just sign one more? Nope, Miss Parks, no more. They had to preserve her, because everyone loved her. She was an icon. And Everyone was trying to get to her. You didn't know who would get to her and hurt her. But for me, it was such a privilege because this was the lady I've been reading about, and I finally got to see her and be her host, of her escort. That was amazing to me. I had to escort her and her bodyguard to where they had to go. That was absolutely was amazing. It was Rosa Parks' 77th birthday at the time. Her 77th birthday. And I'm thinking about it now. I said, I'm 70 years old now. So, and I said, gosh, that was amazing to me. Absolutely amazing. It was many, many years ago. Many years ago. I think I was in my late 20s when that happened. I think all children, Black, white, whatever, all need to know the history of their parents, the struggles that they endured, just so you can have or be where you are today. Especially if you've got caring parents. And some people don't have caring parents. Some people weren't raised by their parents. Some people were raised by their grandparents, or somebody was adopted. But the thing is, we all came from a struggle at some point in our lives. Things weren't always easy. At some point, and especially in our younger life, as youth, it may have seemed easy because our parents made it appear easy. They kept us out of their business. You weren't in the room with grown people when they were talking. And now we know why. But now that we're grown with our own families, grandchildren, whatever, we now know why they kept us out of the room, why they kept us out of the adult grown conversations, why they kept us away from the heated discussions among, maybe whites or other Blacks as it relates to race. But it helped us, grow and be better at dealing with society and the ways of the world now. As I got older and had my own children, I realized that if we don't teach our kids now, if you don't teach your children right from wrong now, instill the values in them right now, you're going to lose your future. The future of America is in the children that are babies now. And so it's like really each one teach one. You got to teach them the way to go. And at least if they fall by the wayside, you will have done your job. And you can pat yourself on the back that you did do what you were taught to do in raising children the right way, educating them the right way, making sure that they have the resources they need, like Miss Merritt did with me. Because when I remember coming home and telling my parents what she said. She said, so how are you supposed to go to college? My dad, how are you supposed to go to college? We don't have money. I said, well, she said she's going to show me. I said, well, Miss Mary said she's going to show me how to do this, how she's going to send me to college. And sure enough, she did. She didn't do it, but she showed me what to do and how to do it. So I was the first Black to attend college in my family. The community at Merrick-Moore were preparing us. We didn't see it then. As youth, your mind is everywhere. But as I look back and I look at the different types of teachers we had, teachers who genuinely cared for us. You could see that they cared for us. They wanted us to be the best we could be. And I took on the philosophy of my English teacher. And I say that to this day, continue to strive to excel. She said that to me when I was, I think I must have been in the 8th grade or 9th grade then. but I wasn't at Merrick-Moore. She wrote in my yearbook as I left junior high school, Highland Junior High School, continue to strive to excel. And I said, what in the world is she talking about? Strive to excel. Those are some big words to me. But I broke it down. I remember dissecting that sentence one day. I came home and I had actually tore the sentence apart. I said, strive means to, push yourself forward. Push forward. To excel means to be the best. Get there. Excellence. Push yourself to excellence. And that is one of my philosophies in life. Strive to excel. And if I ever send a youth a card for graduation, if they graduate from anything or they're going on to school somewhere, I always write, email, text, or whatever. Continue to strive to excel. There's always room for growth and development. Continue to strive to excel. And my grandmother would always say, be the best of whatever you are. Those are my two statements. Be the best of whatever you are. If you can't go to college and you wind up being a janitor somewhere, she would say, be the best janitor they ever had at that school or wherever. Shine the floors like they've never been shined before. Be the best of whatever you are. So those are the philosophies that I carry and have carried and have instilled in my kids. And now, and to this day, I'm always telling my grandchildren that. I tell them, time does not wait for you. Strive to excel and be the best of whatever you are.